My research interest is in the field of nuclear medicine. Now, nuclear medicine is all about using radioisotopes for the treatment of cancer, but also for diagnostic purposes to find out what is wrong with a patient. We started off the work by using the metal technetium, which is a gamma emitter, and the trick or the secret is to have the metal bind different molecules to it, or different atoms. This example is the metal in the center. There's an oxygen, nitrogen in a ring, another oxygens, chlorines, phosphorus. And then this agent is injected into the body, and hopefully the molecule will locate in a specific organ in the body. And through its radioactivity, we can then measure the radioactivity from outside the body with a gamma camera, and then we can form a picture of the organ itself. So for physicians, it will then be very easy to diagnose what is wrong with the patient, just by having an image of the organ from using a gamma camera from outside the body. So far, in the last 25 years, we've published about 180 papers in this particular field, and publishing is a very important aspect of our work. Our belief is that research must be published. That peer review, the criticism, is absolutely necessary to promote your research, to increase the quality of your research. You cannot do without it. Therefore, also, always to my colleagues, I ask them, please attend conferences, present your work, get the criticism from other people in a particular field. That can only increase the quality of the research. In the last few years, in the last 2 years, we were very fortunate to buy instrumentation to the value of nearly 14 million rand. And luckily, when we got this X-ray diffractometer 18 months ago, we were in a fortunate position to analyze those compounds to produce lots of new molecules that we can apply in our research, and that obviously we can publish. And that was the main reason why 2011 was such a very good or excellent year for the chemistry department. Because all this backlog of new structures we could now do. The other instrumentation we have, but the crucial element was, what is the structure of the molecule? That is so important to publish, to tell the world exactly what you are talking about, how is the molecule with a certain activity, what is its structure. And this machine enabled us to do that. And that has increased tremendously to our research output. This obviously isn't the only instrument that we bought. We also have a world-class nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer that also makes a large contribution to the work we are doing. So we are very well equipped. This is one of our new instruments, absolutely state-of-the-art, world-class, that enable us to absolutely increase our research outputs. It is a nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer. It has a big magnet, and what it does, we put a sample inside the magnet. We vary the frequency up to 400 megahertz, and then the hydrogen atoms, in some cases even carbon atoms, vibrate. We measure these vibrations, and these vibrations are typical of the environment in which the hydrogen atom is, or which the carbon atom is, and from its environment we can make certain conclusions. What the molecule looks like, what combinations we get, how far even are certain carbon and hydrogen atoms from one another. We have now the facility to do their structures, and luckily world-class instrumentation enable us to do that.
What is my teaching philosophy? As far as I'm concerned, I have a fervent belief that teaching is a calling in life. And if you want to be a teacher, you've got to give yourself off to your learners, to your community, to the people around you, so that you can touch their lives in meaningful ways and make a constructive contribution to the people whom you come into contact with. I want to enable my students to become critical and creative thinkers in a nurturing environment, so that they can give the best of themselves. And I also want my students to be able to think critically, to think for themselves, and to be active participants rather than passive recipients. because it's so much better when the students are actively engaged in activities rather than you giving them all the information. Teaching must create opportunities for students to actualize their potentialities. This means that students have hidden talents and gifts, and as a teacher, you should do your utmost to try to enable them to actualize these potentialities. This philosophy of making them actualize their potentialities is very much in line with Howard Gardner's ideas of multiple intelligences, where you bring out the best in every child, in every learner, in every student. And that's what I endeavor to do in my classes with my students, to bring out the best in them so that they can feel proud of who they are, and so that that can improve their self-esteem, and so that they can achieve the heights that they set for themselves. I also see both the lecturer and the student as a potential teacher. They should acquire skills in reflective practice to improve teaching and learning. This means that you need to reflect on your experiences in the class. As a lecturer myself, I'm constantly reflecting on what's happening in my class. Am I making a meaningful contribution to my students? Am I making a difference to the teaching and learning in my environment? And working with students from diverse backgrounds and working with students who are involved in teacher training, I also want them to be able to make a difference to the lives of their learners when they become teachers, so that they can also reflect on their teaching, and so that they can improve teaching and learning in the context wherever they find themselves. And my philosophy also encompasses the idea of working with diverse learners and trying to create opportunities for all learners to excel, irrespective of who they are, where they're coming from, so that they can feel a sense of achievement in whatever they undertake in their lives. And what kind of strategies do I adopt in my classes? My classes are very interactive. There are lots of opportunities for students to participate. Students also have opportunities to ask a lot of questions, and basically I try to create a safe space for the students so that they have an opportunity to say how they feel about various issues. Of course, in a very nurturing, safe environment, so that they don't feel threatened. And I see myself as a facilitator rather than as a lecturer giving students a lot of information. I also like the idea of cooperative learning, which I feel is a wonderful strategy to use in your classes, which you create opportunities for your students to work in groups on various projects, and all the members of a particular group will have an opportunity to share their ideas and to work jointly on these projects. And what I have done is I've tried to incorporate cooperative learning as a strategy for with drama and theatre in education as well. I use drama and theatre in education extensively in my classes to give students an opportunity to be able to exercise their skills and their talents which they have. And I find that using creative approaches or participatory visual methodologies like drama and theatre in education has a tremendous impact on the students, because it empowers them, it enriches them, it makes them tap into their critical and creative faculties, and it brings out the best in the students.
Welcome to the Advanced Mechatronics Technology Center. The center consists of 5 pillars. The first pillar, the main one, is the Siemens Automation Training Center, where we offer automation and drives training to the local industry, automotive specifically, but their suppliers as well. In the training center we have 2 full-time instructors that run the courses, about 10 different courses, and through the generation of the funding in these courses, we then support research and also undergraduate student projects. For example, like the Cyber Junkyard competition, an annual competition that runs between 10 different universities, including international universities that visited us last year from Germany as well. The second pillar is the AIDC Human Resource Development Program. In this program, we specifically concentrate on skills development for undergraduate students, research students as well. We support programs like the renewable energy that are under leadership of Dr. Russell Phillips in the Wind Energy Research Group. The energy that they generate on top of the E-block with the 1 kilowatt turbine as well as the solar panels, we utilize that to power our Siemens laboratory. So our Siemens laboratory completely is green, and as a matter of fact we generate enough energy now that we are going to build charging stations for students to charge their laptops and cell phones. We also financially support our solar vehicle project that we started towards the end of last year in collaboration with VW and the VW Dart Chair. 15 of our students are building a solar vehicle that will participate in an international race from Johannesburg through Paarthurst to Cape Town, back to Port Elizabeth, to Bloemfontein, to Durban, and then back to Johannesburg in about 12 days. Under the AIDC Human Resource Development Program, we also support research of the Formula Student Racing Team, where one of our staff members is currently doing his master's on the setup of the chassis of the vehicle. We also support the automotive supply companies in the region, the Eastern Province region, in project development. And then we also have a community project that is run by our engineering students with a high school in the rural areas called Masimambane High School, where they have a tutoring program on Saturdays where they teach all the subjects or tutor all the subjects in order or with the objective of trying to increase the pass rate of the school, which was traditionally or historically very low. The third column is a winter school we run through the sponsorship of AIDC. It's called the Automotive Engineering Career Development Program. It's a 2-week engineering winter school that we run on campus on a full-time basis. But leading into this is collaboration with the chair or the mathematics chair under Professor van der Olivier that do a maths and science development program with rural learners in the Eastern Cape. And then they come to a 2-week full-time program on campus where we expose them to all the different engineering aspects in order for them to make a career choice of study. The fourth leg is the Mercita Chair in Engineering Development, obviously Mercita sponsored. One of the most successful programs introduced by the Mercita Chair in Engineering Development is a Math, Science and Engineering Development Week in Somerset East, where we invite about 30 learners from disadvantaged communities to attend a Maths and Science Development program, about a 14-week program. And then we attend a 1-week engineering week at Somerset East for all these kids. We actually include a 1-day visit to our university for them to see the facilities and the laboratories of the university, and then we also take them to VW to have a plant visit at VW and VW Pavilion as well. The fifth and last one is a Festa Pneumatics Training Center, where we do training for students and industry on pneumatics, hydraulics, electropneumatics and electrohydraulics. Specifically, an initiative that was started by Festa Didactics in Johannesburg about 6 years ago, and helped us establish that specific laboratory. All right, a very successful research project completed last year was done by Sean Pretorius for his MTech in mechanical engineering, where he developed a photogrammetrical system to measure a complete vehicle. It's a system, in layman's term, where you use a digital camera, take photos around a vehicle, and then you build up a 3D CAD model of the vehicle through the system. That CAD model can be overlaid onto an actual CAD drawing of the vehicle, and then comparisons be made to make sure that quality standards are met.
Way back, I believe it was the Russians launched their first satellite, before the Americans actually, and it lasted, I don't want to lie to you, I think it was a few hours only, and they found that the reason why it didn't last in space was because of the actual radiation. So a normal system on Earth, it would have been worked for many years, it would have been fine, it was a good design, but they didn't take into account the radiation effects, single event upset. And since that time, people have started looking at designing electronics for space systems or for a system, a satellite system that works in a space environment. And you really cannot get away from it. you actually do get radiation hardened components, but they are orders of magnitude more expensive than commercial off-the-shelf components, which is what I'm going to concentrate on. You could go to a company like Actel Corporation or Xilinx, and you can tell them, I want to design for a space radiation environment. They'll ask you what environment, what orbit you'll be working in, and then they can work out what the radiation environment will look like, and they can make some prediction about how long their device will last. They'll tell you then, okay, we've got radiation hardened equipment, but this will cost you, for example, $6,500 US, as opposed to an equivalent device that you can buy commercially for $100. So the price is orders of magnitude more than a normal commercial off-the-shelf component. And for smaller companies or for universities developing satellites, to bring the cost down, you have to use these commercial components because they simply do not have money to buy these radiation hard components. You cannot simply design for an application on Earth. You have to now take into account the radiation environment and how that will affect your electronics, and how the errors will occur and how to mitigate those effects. So it's not really possible to completely get rid of radiation effects, but there are mitigation strategies to lessen the actual impact. And this is where the Novell SET filter comes in, the one that we've developed at NMMU. This proposed method is very simple and it's actually very effective, and you're only using 3 extra gates to actually provide protection against a single event transient as opposed to triple modular redundancy. And what we found was that if you're using double modular redundancy, it requires 30 to 33% less area than triple modular redundancy with a similar type of protection. And if you add the delay element, so you have no duplication, it gives you up to 67% less area than TMR. So it is very effective and very useful as far as designing for FPGAs are concerned. So this is a simple circuit, the one I showed earlier in the slide. And this is errors that I introduced randomly into my circuit. And then what I do is I count all these errors if it occurs at the active edge of a clock. Right, so that would be the active edge of a clock. And what I find is that the errors coming out at the other side is actually 0, always 0. The output is error-free as far as the flip-flop is concerned.